Hello, everyone. This is another edition of Talk Time. I've got Teresa joining me today, and we're going to be talking about NLP language patterns in the Ericksonian model. So we've got a few slides that we're going to talk on. Hopefully that will help you to get a little bit of understanding on what language patterns are and how we use them as hypnotherapists. So this is what we've got installed today. Welcome, Teresa. How are you?
I'm good, thank you, Meredith. Looking forward to this week's talk time. How have you been?
Yeah, pretty good. It's been a busy week. I've been doing lots of things behind the scenes. I'm actually quite excited. I've got a book that I've been working on for a little while called The Help System. It's a coaching guide. So I'm about to put that out live to everyone, and it's a coaching process that I put together a number of years ago, but I've decided to write it into a workbook that people can go through and follow. So that's going to be on our site very soon. So watch this space. What about you, Teresa? How have you been?
Yes, it's been a busy week. I think it's that time of year, winter, but lots of things going on. But excited to be back here for this week's talk time.
Nice. When we're kind of looking at language patterns, I think what I do remember most about students is it can be really overwhelming because there's a lot of words in this section around description of what this language pattern is and how we might use it. And I think at the beginning of your learning, it can be quite overwhelming. What was it like for you when you were learning? What do you remember?
It was very daunting, and if I'm going to be open and honest, it was probably the trickiest section for me to actually come to terms with, I guess. Yes.
I think I would like to normalize that actually a lot of these language patterns people use in everyday life, but how we use it as a hypnotherapist is quite lovely. And I think it needs to be something you practice, and you can chunk it down and just learn one language pattern a week and just kind of go treasure hunting for them and see whether you can utilize them in a reframing exercise, perhaps to people around you. You don't have to always do that practice in a formal therapeutic setting. We can definitely use that in our everyday life. When we're kind of looking at the Milton model, a bit of an overview, I thought I'd just start with that. So I'll just go through and talk a little bit about that. So the Milton model was named after Milton H. Erickson. He was a renowned psychiatrist and a hypnotherapist known for his innovative and effective use of language in therapy. The Milton model comprises a set of language patterns designed to bypass the conscious mind and communicate directly with the unconscious, or some people say the subconscious. Its primary purpose is to induce trance states, facilitate change, and access the client's inner resources. Now, actually, inner resources are a big part of what we do as a hypnotherapist. We really need to listen out and believe that the client has the answer and look for some of those things when we're talking to that client. The key principles, there are three main ones. The indirect language. So the Milton model emphasizes the use of indirect language to avoid triggering resistance from the conscious mind. Ambiguity, deliberate ambiguity, is used to allow clients to interpret suggestions the way that is most meaningful and relevant to them. And utilization, the therapist utilizes the client's experiences and their language and responds to them in a tailored way using tailored suggestions and interventions effectively. So that's a little brief overview. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. What do you think about that introduction to the Milton model?
I think it's a very good explanation again for people not to worry too much about it, because with time it all starts to make sense and you realize that you see a lot of these language patterns every day, and the more you go through it, the more you actually pick that up in normal day-to-day life.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's have a look at some slides here that we have. So when we're kind of looking at the idea of the importance of understanding the language patterns in hypnotherapy, when we go through the slides, we'll talk on each one and just have a little breakdown, shall we? So the first one is its purpose: to induce trance by bypassing the critical thinking and accessing the unconscious mind. Now, in NLP, normal NLP, we are breaking trance. So we are using things called challenges. Now, in the Milton model, in that kind of idea of using language, we are taking the person into trance, but we're reframing something. So an example might be someone has an unresourceful belief about something. Can you think of an example, Teresa?
That always happens to me time and time again. So it could be that always missing the train, for example, always happens to me.
So isn't it interesting how sometimes we believe things always happen, but when we look again, it's amazing how infrequent things really do. And isn't it nice to think about the infrequence that it could happen in the future, and how, as the future belongs to the possibilities of things happening in a different way, that you can choose to do things differently, can't you?
Mm-hmm.
So what do you notice?
Straight into the language patterns. And Meredith makes it seem so simple.
So what did you notice there, Teresa, as I was reframing your statement of belief?
You start to agree with it because you're listening to it, because you're actually giving me statements in a way that actually are true, and makes you think and look at it in a different way.
Yeah, it's quite spontaneous, and it's something that as a hypnotherapist it's really good to hone in on as a tool. So let's carry on to the next slide, shall we? So embedded commands. So what on earth are they? So let's look at the slide here. Embedded commands are hidden within the sentence structure of the statement. So when we're kind of looking at the purpose, it's to deliver suggestions in a subtle way, so you make them more likely to be accepted by the unconscious mind. Now, an example, you can begin to relax now, or listen to my voice. Now, what does that do? So you can begin to relax now, or listen to my voice. Look at it. So you can begin to relax now. By itself, that is a command.
Yes.
As you listen to my voice, that's also a command to listen to my voice. It's a command to relax, and relax now, or listen to my voice. Both things are commands. So it's embedded. It happens so quickly that the client doesn't even realize they don't have choice. Now we can soften it. You say, you may choose to listen to my voice if you want, or drift off into your own pleasant thoughts. Now that's not really a command in the same kind of way, and it's not embedded. It's kind of open to choice a little bit more, right? But in that particular language pattern, we're taking away choice completely, and we're really commanding that person very quickly to do what we want.
Yeah. So another example would be, as you sit there, you might begin to feel a sense of relaxation.
Yeah. So as you sit there, you may begin to feel a sense of relaxation. The only way that the client can experience that is to notice the feelings of relaxation as they sit there. It's pointing their mind to exactly where you want them to go.
Yeah.
Right? So actually it happens very quickly. We just have a particular name for it. So when we're kind of looking at the next slide, presuppositions. So a presupposition, is quite an interesting one. I'm just going to enlarge my screen so I can read it more, hopefully better, because I don't know about you, Teresa, but this screen is tiny. There we go. That's my. So definition of assumptions. There we go. Definition of assumptions that are implied with a statement. So the purpose is to lead the client to accept certain ideas and beliefs as given. So an example, when you start feeling more confident, you'll notice how much easier it is to handle stress.
Mm-hmm.
Now, without jumping the gun too much, it's not just a presupposition. So you're assuming that the client, when they feel more confident, will be able to notice how much easier it is to handle stress. But it's done in an elegant way where it's a suggestion and it's an assumption that that's what will happen. But it's also a cause and effect.
There's also a way to introduce new ideas or behaviours indirectly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, for example, actually, I'll come back to you. Can you present me another issue, and we're going to use a presupposition statement back to it?
God, putting me on the spot now here with lots of different issues. Okay, every time I go to go shopping, I feel as if I'm anxious and I start having this panic attack and my heart starts to beat and rush. I really don't like it when I have to go out around lots of different people.
So you find that in the future, as you go out and about more and more, you find yourself becoming more and more relaxed. And it's funny how quickly things can change, can't they?
Yes.
So again, you're reframing in a positive way. You're not refocusing on the negative language that the client has brought, but you're moving it around and you're allowing the client to start to hallucinate success.
So when you say that, don't they, would you then leave a pause for your client to respond back to you, or would you carry on? Because what if they said, well, actually, no, they don't?
Well, when someone's in hypnosis, they're more compliant. So usually they go, yeah, which is a really nice thing that happens. So they take on board more easily those direct suggestions in a really elegant way. So they begin to imagine success or hallucinate success in their mind. So that's what happens. Yeah.
So would they, you're saying that to Meredith, just, for people that are out there watching these videos, the purpose of this, so would they generally nod something like that, or what would generally your client's response be? Or is that variable?
If you've set it up to nod, but they might have a little miniature movement. But sometimes you can go and just nod your head every time you agree, and they'll go nod their head every time they agree with that. So you can definitely set it up, but spontaneously you'll see little we agreement movements anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you can do either way.
Yeah.
But a person will, that sensory acuity, like looking at what the person's doing when you're actually inviting a new thought, how are they moving in a micro way? Are they having a little smile on their face? Is something going on inside where you think, oh yeah, something exciting is happening? These are the sort of things that as a hypnotherapist you want to look out for.
Okay. And this is something, I take it, that you would be teaching with your students or going through your students from the beginning, because it could seem quite overwhelming. Oh, I've suddenly got to watch their body language and what they're doing, and I've got to remember these language patterns, and yeah.
We chunk it down, and I think the more you practice, the more that awareness builds, and it becomes automatic, natural, and normal after a while. Yeah. So presuppositions, like we're assuming something about the situation, but in a positive way. We want to really utilize the strengths here, that it's amazing how far you've come. And isn't it interesting that even the version of you a year ago has been upgraded since then? and imagine your version of you a year's time, how much more fulfilled you are going to feel. So this is where we can really play with these assumptions that that person will feel better because they've evolved every year, and that they could use that evolution in a positive, powerful way. So that this is where we're really playing with language. We're having fun with it. It's like poetry for me. It's quite exciting. So when we're looking at metaphors and analogies, these are powerful too in the hypnotic toolkit. So definitions, so using stories and or comparisons to convey messages indirectly. And the purpose is to bypass resistance and to help client relate to the concept on a deeper level. So imagine your mind is like a garden and you are planting seeds of positive thoughts. So this is kind of an idea, right? So is your mind a garden? No, but we can imagine it being like a garden, and we can imagine the thoughts being like seeds. So I use that kind of language pattern a lot with my clients, actually. So when we're looking at that idea of the analogy of the garden, most people can relate to that. So it's nice to get universal analogies, universal ideas and understandings. What are your thoughts on that, Teresa?
Yes, definitely, because a lot of people, as you say, can relate to gardening. Another one I use is imagine your life as a book, with each chapter representing new opportunities. Again, most people can relate to a book as well. So I think it's quite nice to get a little collection, and you will do as you go on and you listen to different bits. You have your information and videos and words, but also as you're studying, you go out and you listen to other people and you look stuff up and read and that. And I think you do get various information that resonates with you. And you think, oh, I like that. I'll use that.
Definitely. Awesome. Let's move into the next slide. When we're looking at double binds, now it sounds quite complex actually, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Remember, a lot of these titles, when we start to look into what they really mean, they become more obvious. Okay, so you start to tune in and hear these things. So a definition is offering two choices, both leading to the desired outcome, which is kind of going back to one of our first ones around you can either close your eyes now, or when you feel like it's time, as you drift into relaxation and close your eyes, you notice how much more deeply you relax. So, you can play around with it like that. So would you prefer to relax deeply now or in a few moments? It's not really saying they're not going to relax. It's just giving them this understanding they almost have choice, but they don't. So you're still leading them to the same direction. Sorry, Teresa.
That's okay. Could you tell me if somebody does give a negative command, what actually happens then to the unconscious mind?
Well, it can be rejected. Look, any command that doesn't sit right could be rejected. So let's say a negative command also could be used in a positive way. I know that sounds strange, but you can say, and every time you'd normally have smoked and enjoyed that smoke, you suddenly realize you no longer do. And it's funny how quickly that feeling of enjoyment of freedom comes into your reality, and how from there you just get better and better at being that smoke-free human, that human that never needed it anyway. So we can start to kind of use a negative command, if you like, or a negative idea, but powerfully turn it around in that space as well. What are your thoughts on that?
I was just sort of curious for you to explain to the students that if they do sort of say something that perhaps that they feel was not quite in a positive way, that you can actually turn that around within the session to make it as become a positive outcome.
It's nice to remember to leave a suggestion on the high note. So if you say, and every time you normally would have had that cigarette, you now begin to think of other things. In fact, it's almost like you've got amnesia, as if you've never smoked in your life. And isn't that nice to think about how freeing that is, to be able to get on with real life in real ways, in a way that is meaningful to you? And isn't it interesting how quickly those changes can be embedded on such an automatic level that you automatically just go out into the day and you just do it that freedom way? And every time you need to relax, you just go for a moment to take a breathing break. And that breathing break makes you feel so good, doesn't it? That's right. And the more you take those breathing breaks, the better you feel, don't you? That's right. So you're starting to build again on this idea, this journey, this assumption that they're going to feel a certain way as they go out into the world. But we are moving it into a higher note. So we're allowing that client to hallucinate the positive outcome rather than think about the past and where they were.
Mm-hmm. A bit like our anchoring, like we were talking about, we anchored in at the high point.
Yeah, absolutely. So when we're kind of looking at the idea of learning, all of these language patterns, they take a bit to get your head around, but once you get them, they start to roll off you. So it's not about having things that are pre-scripted. I think it's really important to get agile and be able to reframe and flip these in real time with the client, using the client's language. That's the most powerful way of doing it, I feel. So let's look at negative commands here. I think you jumped the gun.
I pushed you forward. Sorry.
The definition is suggestions phrased as prohibitions, which often lead to the opposite effect. So to leverage the unconscious mind's tendency to disregard that negation. So example, don't imagine a pink elephant. Now, quite often I talk to my clients about the idea of the brain being literal. So if you said, don't think about how good you're going to feel when you quit smoking, right? You can do it like that. Don't think about the possibilities of how good that would be once you're out of that negative relationship. So what do people do? They go and think about the possibilities of how good that's going to be. So we can drop in these very interesting language patterns to turn things around. So we are literal. I usually use the don't think of a porcupine backing into a big red balloon. What happened to the balloon? Everyone says, yep, it popped every time. So we are literal. And when we point the mind to what we want the client to think about, it will. The don't means nothing. So do not think about, but people will go and think about it. So think about how you are, or maybe I should be clever and say, don't think about how clever you're going to be with your language patterns once you've learnt them. How amazing that's going to feel. Don't think about that. So we can play around with those negative commands in that way. How's that
One of
feel?
the things that I used to do with that was, like, I used to say, or, for the children, for example, like, don't forget to bring your homework book home or your reading books home. And of course, what did they do? They used to forget. So I changed my language into saying to them, remember to bring back your homework book or your reading book. And 9 out of 10 times they'd remember those books.
Yeah, absolutely. So those little tiny things, sayings, we often do things in negative ways by accident. We don't mean to, but yeah, if we can go, okay, I'm going to remember each name as I meet new people. I'm going to really remember that name. I'm going to get excited about that name. You're more likely to, actually. So yeah, the way we frame it to ourselves and build that belief is important, isn't it?
Definitely, for sure.
So let's look at cause and effect here. So creating a casual link between two statements, implying that one leads to the other. I talked about that briefly at the beginning when we were talking about the other language patterns. So it's not that one language pattern only exists when you're doing a statement. There might be 3 different language patterns all working together in that one statement. So do understand that it could be a cause and effect plus a mind read plus an assumption. Well, we haven't got to the other ones yet, but it can be quite layered. So the purpose is to establish the connection that influences the client's perception or behavior. So an example, as you focus on your breathing, you will find yourself becoming more relaxed. So the person is, as you focus on the breathing, on your breathing, you will find yourself becoming more relaxed. So the breathing allows the person to relax. So I use that all the time with an induction. So every time you blink, your eyes are getting sleepier and heavier, and you find you go deeper and deeper into hypnosis. And hypnosis happens easily. The more you practice, the more easy it becomes, and the deeper you go. And the more you can act on those suggestions later in a really wonderful way, changing your life in the most positive way forever and ever. So you can keep on going on around the cause and effect statements, and they're woven beautifully and magically within so many things. You could anchor it to someone too outside in the community. So every time you see your children, it makes you feel really happy inside, because you realize what a privilege it is to be able to see people grow. And you focus. And as you focus on all the positive things, those positive things become contagious, and you allow that wonderful positive energy to enhance your family life. So again, we can add, layer and layer into that kind of idea of what comes next. So yeah, what are your thoughts on that, Teresa?
I think it sounds quite complex, but the more you go through it and the more you do it, you realize, as you're saying, it's layered, and you're actually ticking the boxes on lots of those different categories without really realizing that you're doing that to begin with.
Cool. When we're looking at the idea of, practice equals perfect, right? So the more you go through this, you can listen to this video again, and hopefully it will get you to start imagining afterwards how many times you can use that in real life. Again, it seems complex, but it's not as complicated as you might think. So mind reads, so what are they? So definition, statements that assert knowledge of the client's internal state. That can often happen in a negative way. So a person might be really upset about a colleague because the colleague seems to be ignoring them. And they come up with a conclusion, well, they used to like me and say hello in the morning, but now they seem to ignore me, so they must not like me. Now, as a therapist, I might challenge that and say, have they told you they don't like you? Is there been something that might have caused that belief that you have, other than them not saying good morning? Could there be other reasons? Now, the ultimate challenge would be, have you ever had a moment where you've forgotten to say good morning to someone you like?
It's amazing how our minds start spiraling quite quickly into the negative patterns rather than positive thought patterns without us realizing what they're actually doing.
So a mind read in a Milton way can be very magical too. So I know as you think about the thoughts, you think about how magical they can be. And that magic within you has possibilities to do all sorts of wonderful things, doesn't it? So we've got an assumption there, a presupposition. We've got a cause and effect. We've also got a mind read woven within that kind of framework. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And along that way, we're building rapport as well, aren't we, with our client and trust?
Definitely. You're being the inner cheerleader externally, if you like. So you're allowing them to feel like you really understand them, even if you don't know what it's all about. You're pretending as if you do, but that can actually be a really good asset within a therapeutic space. Let's say someone gets really upset and you go, I know, it can be really hard. Now, you don't know specifically what is hard for that client, but the client will feel as if you do. So any other thoughts that you have about that, Teresa?
Things really where people don't need to tell us everything, but we can just imply that we actually agree with them, or for them to allow us to see that we understand and we are listening, which is a good thing to be thinking of, that we actually listen to our clients. We're not making the decisions for them, we're actually listening.
Definitely. And I think this is an important part of any therapeutic relationship, right?
Yeah, being listening.
The power of feeling like you've been heard. Yeah. So universal quantifiers, now these come thick and fast, where there's a lot of overgross exaggerations about a person's belief about things, okay? So they're generalizations using words like all, everyone, or everywhere, always. So that is really important, that you're really listening out for those, because they can be done in a negative way. Now, we can also utilize them in a positive way. So if you're always going to be calm and relaxed, well, that would be good, wouldn't it? If, however, you're always scared and out of control, well, that's probably not one you want to build. So we want to really look at that idea of utilizing that universal quantifier statement of position and belief in a hypnotic way. So everyone who tries this technique finds it beneficial. So it's nice to be able to embed that, right? Yeah.
That's what we're wanting.
Yeah. So everyone. Well, how do we know that to be true? Well, it doesn't really matter. It's kind of a nice thing to believe. So let's place it in there, and the subconscious will begin to work on that as if it's true. Because you would be part of the everyone, wouldn't you?
I would, yes.
Any other thoughts about the universal quantifiers?
I think it's a great one, and you can see with your face and your excitement, you love playing with that, and it can take you into lots of different avenues with you know, using your all and every and always and flipping that around to positive.
So let's say someone comes in and they say, oh, I'm always late for appointments, and you notice that they weren't late today for the appointment they made with you. You might even say, always? What about today? You're on time. So you challenge them. And then later on, you could utilize that in a hypnotic way and say, isn't it nice now you realize how you are on time to many wonderful things that are important to you, and how more and more things that are important to you can be things that you could be on time to every time. And as you are on time every time, it makes you feel so much better, because you're enjoying all the things that are important to you, aren't you? So I know it sounds repetitive and looping, but that's kind of what a language pattern does, where we're utilizing that client's experience that was negative, and we're reframing it, reminding them of actually how they can do it, and we're embedding that idea of how they're going to do it in the future.
And I think it may sound a bit weird to some people that are listening to, because it's not our everyday language patterns that we actually use, that we're sort of repeating bits, leaving little bits out, but it becomes easier to actually do the more that you practice.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got 2 more slides, people, so not long to go. I decided to just pick 10 really well-used language patterns today. There's actually about 29 to 30 of them that are regularly acknowledged and recognized as Ericksonian language patterns. So I'm sure, you know, if you're interested in learning, you can drill down on them later. But I've just for now picked 10 to keep this nice and short and give you a bit of a taste of what that's all about. So nominalizations, what a word, eh?
One that rolls off the tongue.
So definition, turning a verb or a process into an abstract noun. So the purpose is to create a sense of completion and solidarity or solidity around abstract concepts. So your transformation is truly remarkable. So when we're looking at transformation is truly remarkable, is transformation a thing?
Well, that's in your own mind, it can be. It is
Can you
something that you
can you touch it?
No.
So when we're kind of looking at the idea of taking something you can't really touch, but utilizing it in an idea that as if you can touch it, as if it was a thing, that can be quite magical, right?
Yes.
Mm.
And I mean, you're sort of, in some ways, I guess that would be, that example as well would be like an embedded command. Command that you're giving to people.
Yes, absolutely. So if we look at that again, so your transformation is truly remarkable. There it is, embedded command.
So like you were saying all along, there's many, many layers to the language patterns that you were using. So don't get too caught up in some ways of knowing of what one it actually falls into, because quite often those commands or suggestions will fall into many categories for the language patterns.
So we could even expand on that one. I would say, isn't it amazing how you're thinking about the transformation that you're going to go through and how it's already started to change, hasn't it? Because even by thinking about it, your transformation is truly remarkable, even in this moment in time. It's wonderful how remarkable it's become, where it wasn't even an idea a moment ago, and now it's become an idea that you can really work with, isn't it? So we can really play with the language, and we can bring in these other concepts and really make something remarkable. I love these things. I don't know if you can sense my inner geek.
You can see that, the excitement on your face. And so come on, people, sign up. You can see the classes will not be boring with Meredith.
So let's look at the tag question. I love these two, actually. So definition of adding a question at the end, and I've been doing that all the way through, haven't I?
You have, for sure. Getting me to put answer questions.
So
I love being your guinea pig.
So when we're looking at that idea, it's an agreement in a way. We're eliciting an agreement, a nod. So you're reinforcing the suggestion, and it encourages the unconscious mind to accept it. So you're starting to feel more relaxed, aren't you? And every time you listen to my voice, you start to get a sense that it's leading you somewhere exciting, isn't it? And how incredible this learning journey could be for you. And as you start that learning journey, how quickly the learning actually occurs. Because learning can be very, very fun, can't it? Because when you've learned something and you utilize that thing, you can see how many wonderful things occur. So I'm just playing around with all of these language patterns that we've been covering today. And you can sort of see how they just kind of slide into each other. It's not just one standing alone. It's a whole sequence, and it's an elegant unwrapping of juicy stuff. Yeah. So what do you think about today's journey, Teresa?
I think today's journey has been fun, and I also hope that it's revealed to our watchers more of your flavour, more of the flavour, and how you will actually be teaching hypnotherapy to those that are keen to learn and join up. And I hope people click that button and subscribe, and also register for your next training group that goes on. It will be exciting learning journey.
One of the things that I want to remind people is hit that notification bell, because we can pump these out once a week, but you might not be told about them. So just make sure you have got that notification switched on. And we really want to make this a space for you guys where you can come and ask questions, and we can talk to those things as well. So look, if you have any comments, please drop us a line in the comments, and we're happy to, again, springboard off those questions that you might have out there. So look, if you want to come on board, please visit the website www.nzach.ac.nz. So you can have a look around. We've got all of the different modules there. There's 18 altogether, and definitely a big section on Ericksonian and NLP language patterns, because
look at their eyes light up.
They are a core.
Yes,
they make you competent as a hypnotherapist every time. So there we go. I'm just finishing off with some clever language patterns there. I enjoy those universal quantifiers. What can I say? So thank you again, Teresa, for joining me on this Talk Time series. And I really am enjoying unpacking my knowledge, and hope you'll tune in next week for our next edition. We haven't worked out what it's going to be. We tend to kind of brainstorm in between, so we can change our tangent. If anyone has something you really want us to talk on, please let us know. So look, thank you for now, and thank you, Teresa.
Thank you. Take care, everyone. Next time.
Bye.